Hello. Uh, I'd like to discuss more about my last video is titled Be True to Yourself. And that's kind of a loaded statement. Um, well, if you're lying to yourself, you can't be telling people around you or in your life the truth, because the two don't coincide. But lying and the truth, and what is the truth, are usually something totally different from each other. You can believe that Trump is the best president ever, and you can believe he's the worst president ever. And I think you can make an argument for both. And I don't know, it depends on you on which one is true. And some people have regrets, and that's true. And some people are very happy, and that's true. So truth is relative to what you believe and how you feel and the moment in time. So people that voted for him might have felt like they made the right choice, and today they might not feel like they made the right choice. So again, it's relative. And, like I said in my other videos, that you're not free. And you're not. You've been lied to, you've been brainwashed, you've been manipulated into believing you're free. I mean, America, the land of the free, that's the biggest delusion, the biggest BS story ever sold to the world. Now, in the beginning, when Columbus and the Pilgrim and Plymouth Rock and all that, yeah, America was free, and you could do what you want. But there wasn't much to do because, things were limited back then. And, just, again, it was relative. And all that freedom that we had back in those days is gone. And the freedom, the tyranny that we were running from England and France and Spain and all those countries, all those rules and regulations that they had in those countries are now here. So we haven't gone anywhere. It took a while for them to catch up to us. It took a while for them to materialize in this country and in our society. But, you got to remember, we came from France, we came from England, we came from Spain, and we brought our brains from there, and our souls, and our beliefs. Uh, you know, the traditions we carried forward. Whatever English tradition you follow, or French tradition you follow, or Spanish tradition like Cinco de Mayo or something like that. We carry it forward here, and even though our feet are in the United States, our brain is still in Spain or France or England. And I'm only using those three countries. There's many more countries, of course. And the same thing happens. The Muslims are here, and, they've made Sharia law outlawed in Minnesota. But there is no Sharia law, but they made it outlawed just in case someone tried to make it a law. It's ridiculous. It's comical. But in 50 years, it might not be so comical, and it might not be 50 years that someone tries to bring Sharia law to Minnesota, because the Muslims come from where they come from, and they bring their traditions, they bring what they like, their religious laws, and they bring them to Minnesota where they live now. And they want their surroundings to reflect their beliefs, It's just like when you see a Korean deli, the neighborhood is Korean. They all congregate around the Korean. Well, I don't think it's like a two-sided thing because they congregate around the Korean deli, and the deli puts itself right where all the Koreans live. So it's one or the other. Depends. It's, again, truth. It's again what do you believe? You're not wrong either way. Because the Korean deli is around a society of Koreans, and if you're a smart businessman, you're going to put a Korean deli where the Koreans live. So it's just a sign if you see a Korean deli that the neighborhood is Korean, and and again, you might like that, or if you're Korean, and you might not like that if you're German. And there's that too. So, and you know, uh, freedom is also relative. I mean, uh, I don't care if you win a $1 billion lottery or even like an Elon Musk. He can only spend his money on certain things. That's why he spent $40 billion on Twitter, and then got rid of the word Twitter and put an X in place. Because that was his way of putting $40 billion in a furnace and letting it on fire. Because that's what he did. And why did he do that? Because it takes $40 billion out of the economy. And the reason why you get up in the morning to go to work, because you have to, now that they burnt $40 billion, we have to recreate 40 billion, and not 40 billion. Now we need 80 billion, and you have to get up and go to work to make that. Your company makes that. You get paid a pittance for your work and for your life. And your bosses and your Elon Musk he'll burn another $40 billion buying a company he don't need, uh, just because it boosts his ego, or puts him in the spotlight again, like Starlink and SpaceX and Tesla, all put him in the spotlight, and that's where he wants to be. And if he didn't have those companies, nobody would know his name. Nobody would care. I mean, Elon's not a pretty guy. He's not a movie star. He's not going to do a TV show or a sitcom, so you wouldn't know his name if you didn't buy his car. And of course it's his car. GM makes cars, but you don't have a face for GM. There's no Elon Musk that runs Tesla, and they like it that way because the CEO of GM, they could fire him in a minute, and it'd be like a bleep on the radar screen. Where if you fire Elon Musk, it's not a bleep, it's a big deal. So they don't like that. There's a limit, and they don't want you to become too big for your britches. And once, I don't care if you are Elon Musk, if you think you're irreplaceable, that's the first time they're going to try and replace you. So again, another truth. Are you irreplaceable? You know, uh, like I said, to be true to yourself is very hard. When you, even for myself, I'm very smart, and I see both sides of the coin. I see Trump's argument for protectionism of the United States and the companies of the United States. And look, the United States is a cash cow for a lot of the world. And, Netanyahu called us the golden calf, which he plans to take all the gold from and manipulate and do what he wants with. And he's doing that. But with that, we have to protect, because everybody will come up with a scraper and start scraping the gold off as much as they want and leave us with nothing. And that's the fear. And again, that's the fear. It's not really realistic. Uh, I think the Japanese own Rockefeller Center in Manhattan. They can own it, but they can't take it home. They can't go anywhere with it. So our logic was, if they want to pay taxes on Rockefeller Center, if they want to clean the streets in Rockefeller Center or take care of those buildings or whatever, then let them. because the idea is they can't take it home with them, you know. And now the problem with like the Chinese, they own a lot of farmland in in the Midwest, and they're using California water and stuff to grow their products, their lettuce or whatever they eat, and then they ship it right to China, and we never see it. It never enters our market. It goes on a boat. It goes to China, and they're using our water and our land to create their food, and they use a lot of our water, and there's a limited amount of water, and they don't let anybody else use the water. They're very strict on who gets access to that water, and they keep it within house, within to themselves. So, with the idea of protectionism, I'm against the Chinese doing that and getting away with it, you know. So, and I don't think a water tax or anything like that would help because for one, it'd be too small, and it wouldn't replace the water. It would make a politician rich, and the problem it would still be a drought land because the water's gone. So I don't think a tax would help. I think you have to ban Chinese companies from doing that, and just an outright ban. You know, they can't own public farmland like that, and you know, but we don't have the political will to stand up to China. And even though Trump puts on a good game, Trump isn't in charge. Trump's a puppet. You know, look, Trump, what did he run on? No wars. He's going to bring peace to Israel. He's going to bring peace to Ukraine. He's going to be the peacemaker of all of the world. And he wanted the Nobel Peace Prize and all that. And what did he do? He started a war with Venezuela. He started with Canada and Panama and Greenland, and now he's starting a war with Iran. And and he's not done, and because he doesn't run anything, you know, he's just a puppet, and they will end him if he does not. He'll have another John F. K. thing again if he does not listen, and he knows that. And the people that run the country aren't sitting in his seat. They're using him. They're using his fame, his popularity, the fact that when he says something, people listen, and it's all done by design. It's all done on purpose. I mean, I would say The Apprentice was done on purpose to set up that whole narrative of how he's perceived, and you know, and he fell right into it, and he loves it. I mean, I don't think he loves it anymore because he sees how he's managed. He sees how he does not have peace. He does not have control. He's not free. And you would think he would be the most free person, and he's not. He's in the White House, which is a beautiful prison. You know, it's a beautiful prison. You know, and I don't know how beautiful it is from where he's looking. It might not be so beautiful. It's like a Ferrari. You know, beautiful. Ferrari's a beautiful car, but when you're sitting in a Ferrari, it's just a steering wheel, a radio, you know, a stick shift, it's a seat. You know, it's not beautiful. It's you don't see the beauty because you're sitting in it. You know, and I think that's the way Trump sees the presidency. He's sitting in it. He doesn't see how other people perceive it. You know, like when you see the Ferrari, you think, "Oh, what a beautiful car," until you get in it, and they're not very comfortable to ride. They have no shock system. If you hit a pothole, you feel it like you just literally just went over a pothole, and it's horrible. And you know and that's the reality. That's the truth of a Ferrari. Well, that's the truth of the presidency. You know, so you're not free. I don't care if you have a college. I don't care if you're a surgeon, a doctor. You're not free. You have a lot of rules you have to follow. You have a lot of regulations. You know, it's funny. I said uh, Trump has a centralized government. You know, where the people at the top control everything. And that's why if you got a refund check or he wants to put his name on the money, you know, because it's his money. He's giving. If you have anything you got from the government, Donald Trump gave it to you, and that's the way. You know, that's what he wants you to think, and that's the centralized government. Whereas Biden, um, people at the bottom had more say in their lives and stuff, and the government didn't really have a say. Look, when Abbott was sending immigrants to New York, Biden didn't step in. Biden didn't say, Abbott, you can't do that, where Trump would have sent the National Guard to stop Abbott if he was against the program, which he wouldn't. He would send the National Guard to help Abbott right now. But if it was the opposite, if his feelings were the opposite, then he would do that. But Biden left Abbott alone and actually argued with Adams, the mayor of New York, about being mad about the immigrants coming and paying for it. He didn't. The federal government didn't pay for the immigrants, and so that's a decentralized government. The people at the top, you know, and they had regulations, but the Democrats are more into regulations, and the Republicans aren't into regulations. But because of lack of regulations, we caused the crash of '08. The stock market crashed, and the crash of '29 was done because of lack of regulations. And it's all done by Republicans, and so they they don't want the regulations because centralized government means the people at the top don't have to follow rules. They make the rules, they don't follow them. And look at Trump. Does he follow rules? No, he makes them. And that's the way he runs his life and runs your life. And, but if they don't tell you that when you go to vote. And like I said, voting's just a pacifier. It's not you're not really voting. You're not making a difference. I would say more on the local level, and maybe your congressmen and your senators. Your vote means more. Like the midterms are going to be important, but when it comes to the presidency, you don't vote the president in. The people that run Trump and use Trump as a puppet, they're the ones who decide who's going to be president. And that's why you got an old man as president, and Biden was an old white man president, because the people running Trump and pulling Trump screens are old white men. So please, the truth is hard.